Emergency in New Orleans, where the Hard Rock Hotel collapsed under construction. Concerns high winds could wreak even more havoc. Overseas tonight, ceasefire confusion in Syria. Reports of Turkish forces attacking Kurdish targets. Thousands trying to escape the combat zone. As one of the president's closest allies calls the decision to withdraw U.S. forces a, quote, grave mistake. White House damage control 24 hours after acting chief of staff Mick Mulvaney's stunning admission to a quid pro quo with Ukraine. Today, the West Wing trying to change the subject, but House Speaker Nancy Pelosi calling it a confession. Deadly plane crash, the passenger jet shooting off the runway. 42 people on board, including a high school swim team. Narco shootout, the massive gun battle between police and drug cartel suspects. Authorities trying to capture the son of convicted drug lord El Chapo, while police say they were forced to let him go. The new clue in the search for a kidnapped 3-year-old girl taken on her birthday. This new surveillance showing her before she vanished and a possible witness. Also tonight, Duchess Meghan's surprisingly candid admission, sharing her struggle about living in the public eye as a royal and a new mother. And floating into history, an out-of-this-world milestone, NASA's first all-female spacewalk.
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
And good evening. Thanks for joining us on this Friday night. I'm Tom Yamas. David is on assignment tonight. And we begin with the tropical threat bearing down on the Gulf Coast at this hour. Tropical storm Nestor forming a short time ago, moving quickly now. The winds picking up as it approaches the shore. Tropical storm warnings in effect across the Florida Panhandle. And a state of emergency in New Orleans, where officials are concerned that gusty winds could affect 2 damaged cranes at a hotel collapse site. The path and timing of Nestor in a moment, but first, ABC's Victor Oquendo starts us off in Mexico Beach, Florida, where they're bracing for the storm.
Tonight, all eyes on Tropical Storm Nestor, now barreling toward the Gulf Coast.
A stronger tropical storm here hitting the area.
This after Category 5 Hurricane Michael struck the same part of the Florida Panhandle, making landfall in Mexico Beach just 1 year ago. This is what Mexico Beach looks like now, many here still struggling to get back on their feet. We met Gail Evans, living in this trailer after losing her home.
Do you feel safe in that with a storm coming?
It depends on the wind loads. If the wind is significant, I'll have to leave.
And in New Orleans, where the Hard Rock Hotel collapsed Saturday, killing 3, fears that gusting winds there could cause 2 damaged cranes to collapse.
The wind has always been a concern of ours, regardless of any tropical storm or not.
Officials planning to use explosives to bring down the cranes tomorrow.
Here in Mexico Beach, the damage and devastation from Hurricane Michael still everywhere you look. Now much of the Florida Panhandle bracing for Nestor's landfall. With it, high winds, heavy rain, and potentially life-threatening storm surge. Tom?
So many people still in temporary housing there, too. That's the big scare. All right, Victor, thank you. ABC senior meteorologist Rob Marciano tracking it all. He's in State College, PA tonight. And Rob, time out Tropical Storm Nestor for us. And I know there's 2 major factors you're worried about.
Well, certainly the storm surge is going to be a big player, and the winds, they're worrisome too. Now clocked at 60 miles per hour. Take a look at where this storm is. Most of the heavy weather is to the east of the center. You see how lopsided that satellite presentation is. It's 250 miles from Panama City, but moving quickly in that direction. So tropical storm warnings are up there, but storm surge warnings go all the way down to Clearwater Beach. We expect landfall around 7 a.m. tomorrow, somewhere near Mexico Beach. And you can see the impacts going far inland. The official track morphs it into an extra tropical storm shortly thereafter tomorrow night into Georgia and the Carolinas on Sunday. But the next 18 hours across much of Florida, Tom, will be rough.
All right, we'll stay tracking that storm through the weekend. Rob, thank you. We want to move on now to the crisis in Syria and questions about whether a 5-day ceasefire is actually holding. Turkey's President Erdogan agreeing with Vice President Pence to stop its assaults on the Kurds. By Tuesday night, all Kurdish forces who are U.S. allies are supposed to pull back from their positions in northern Syria. But is that likely to happen? ABC's James Longman with a reality check in the region tonight.
A ceasefire hanging in the balance tonight. While Turkey says it stopped its assault, Kurdish forces claim some fighting continues. President Trump today downplaying that report after a call with Turkey's president.
There was some sniper fire this morning. There was mortar fire this morning that was eliminated quickly. And they're back to the full pause.
But the Kurds claim a hospital was targeted in this key border town.
Sometimes you have to go through some pain before you can get a good solution, but the Kurds are very happy about it.
But they're not happy about it. And tonight, even Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is saying withdrawing US forces from Syria is a grave strategic mistake. The US-Turkish brokered deal forces the Kurds to pull out of their positions by Tuesday. Today, the Turkish president warning if not, they'll face a new and more determined offensive. The deal allows Turkey to carve out a stretch of the border roughly 20 miles into Syria, home to thousands of Kurds. But the Kurds, longtime partners of the US, say they won't surrender their land, calling it ethnic cleansing. Hundreds have been killed and hundreds of thousands uprooted, many flooding into refugee camps like this one in Iraq.
There's a lot of anger against the United States in this camp. Just a few days ago, these people were at home in Syria. They only feel they're here because of America.
This man escaped 2 days ago with his family, and on Trump, he's clear. The man who leaves his supporters is a traitor, and he's only looking for his benefit.
Strong tensions there, and James joins us now from northern Iraq. And James, the big question now, how likely is it tonight that this ceasefire can hold?
Well, Tom, more violence is certainly possible because the two sides don't have the same idea on where the Kurds must withdraw to. Kurdish forces believe it's a far more limited pullback, while the Turks expect something far broader. And that is why tonight we're learning the Kurds want international observers to help police it. Tom?
James Longman with that new reporting tonight for us. James, thank you. We turn now back here to home to the deadly plane crash in Alaska. Only the second death in a crash on a U.S. carrier in a decade. The plane overshooting the runway, coming to a stop down an embankment just short of the bay. 42 people were on board, including a high school swim team. 2 people were critically injured, and one of the injured has now died. Here's ABC's Kana Whitworth.
Tonight, investigators scrambling to the scene to determine why this Alaska Airlines plane flying from Anchorage crashed upon landing at a rural airport in Unalaska. The twin turboprop running off the runway at roughly 5:40 p.m., stopping just short of plunging into icy waters of the Aleutian Islands. Authorities confirming 38-year-old David Allen Ottoman was killed, 10 other passengers injured, 1 critically. You can see the front of the plane hanging over the rocks. 39 passengers and 3 crew in total on board, including a high school swim team. They remain on the island and are shaken up but safe. And Tom, the NTSB will be investigating a variety of factors, including weather and pilot error, specifically why they landed with a tailwind. Tom?
Kana, thank you. Also tonight, newly revealed messages between Boeing test pilots suggest the company may have been aware of problems with its 737 MAX jets before 2 fatal crashes. The company has now turned those text messages over to the Department of Transportation. Here's ABC's Alex Perez.
Those newly revealed messages between Boeing 737 MAX test pilots shows that even they were surprised at how the automated system dramatically took control of the aircraft. It's running rampant in the sim on me, one pilot referencing the flight simulator. The plane is trimming itself like crazy. The 2016 messages sent 2 years before the flight control system, called MCAS, was linked to crashes in Indonesia and Ethiopia, killing 346 people.
The test pilots seemed to indicate that they thought that the simulator was causing a problem in activating this MCAS system when it shouldn't have been. In reality, it was the airplane that was doing it.
Tonight, the FAA administrator is demanding an immediate explanation from the CEO of Boeing. The company only alerted the Department of Transportation just last night.
Tom, Boeing says their CEO has called the FAA. He is scheduled to testify on Capitol Hill later this month, where he will certainly face questions about all of this. Tom?
Alex, thank you. We want to head to Washington now. The White House on the defensive tonight after the stunning admission in the impeachment showdown, undercutting the president's main defense, that there was no quid pro quo. Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney acknowledging that military aid to Ukraine was linked in part to an investigation of Democrats. Mulvaney then trying to take it back. Today, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi calling it a confession. Here's ABC's Chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl.
It may have been the defining moment of the impeachment inquiry, but when the president was asked today about his acting chief of staff's blunt admission of a quid pro quo, he quickly changed the subject.
Mr. President, clarify what Mick Mulvaney said yesterday. Was the aid?
I think he clarified it. And I do have to say this. We yesterday had a tremendous day in Texas. We opened a Louis Vuitton plant.
Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney is now denying that he said the president withheld military aid from Ukraine in part to pressure them to investigate Democrats. But he did say that, and he said it on live TV.
Did he also mention to me in the past the corruption related to the DNC server? Absolutely. No question about that.
So the demand for an investigation into the Democrats was part of the reason that he ordered to withhold funding to Ukraine.
The look back to what happened in 2016 certainly was part of the thing that he was worried about in corruption with that nation. And
withholding the funding.
Yeah, which ultimately then flowed.
But to be clear, what you just described is a quid pro quo. It is funding will not flow unless the investigation into the Democratic server happens as well.
We do that all the time with foreign policy.
Today, Nancy Pelosi was blunt. What he said was, of course, a confession. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy, however, said he accepts Mulvaney's denial of his own words.
I checked Mick Mulvaney at his word for clarification.
All right, John Carl joins us now from the White House. And John, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy there defending Mick Mulvaney's walk back. But today, a different sentiment from another Republican congressman.
Congressman Francis Rooney, he is a moderate Republican from the state of Florida, said that he was shocked by Mulvaney's words and skeptical about his attempt to take it all back. He said it is not an etch-a-sketch. And Tom, Congressman Mulvaney does not rule out supporting the impeachment inquiry.
Jonathan Karl for us tonight. John, thank you. Now to the deadly gun battle between police and a narco militia over a drug cartel suspect wanted here in the U.S. The battle in Mexico over an attempt to arrest the son of the notorious drug lord El Chapo, turning the streets into a war zone. Vehicles set on fire to keep the authorities out. The police eventually letting El Chapo's son go. And tonight, Mexico's president is defending that decision. Here's ABC's Stephanie Ramos.
This is the deadly and chaotic gun battle erupting in the Mexican city of Culiacan after the Mexican government says the National Guard and Army attempted to arrest El Chapo's son, Ovidio Guzman Lopez. Authorities say a heavily armed drug cartel ambushed the military and police, spraying them with bullets. This journalist filming as deafening gunfire rings out around him, taking cover behind his news van. Masked gunmen paralyzing the city, lighting cars on fire to keep police back. Women and children running for cover. The situation so out of control, authorities retreated and suspended the operation. At least 8 killed, nearly 24 wounded. Guzman's father, El Chapo, is serving life in prison in the U.S. for a number of criminal charges.
Tonight, Mexico's president is defending the decision to call off the raid, saying too many innocent people were at risk. Tom.
Stephanie Ramos for us. Stephanie, thank you. Back here at home, new developments in the desperate search for a little girl who vanished during a birthday party in Birmingham, Alabama. 3-year-old Camille McKinney, known as Cupcake, disappeared Saturday night. Police have now released new surveillance video. You see it right here, and they're asking for help in identifying a possible witness. They're also asking for the public's help in identifying him. Here's ABC's Steve Osunsami.
The surveillance video Birmingham police are sharing tonight shows the kidnapping in progress last Saturday evening. 3-year-old Camille McKinney is seen with another child at the playground outside a birthday party when a man walks by. Look again. This is the man police need to find tonight.
I want a back bag, and I'll do anything to have my baby back.
Authorities underline that he is not at all a suspect, but instead a possible witness to this, a second man who is a suspect and leads the children away. One child made it home that night. The other, who her family calls Cupcake, is still missing.
We want to see if he has additional information, if he has something more for us.
Surveillance video recorded this blue SUV speeding away, and it led police to these 2 people who were questioned and have not been accused in the child's disappearance. Both were arrested on unrelated charges. For 39-year-old Patrick Stallworth, those charges are child pornography. Authorities are planning to hold a search over the weekend and are asking tonight for volunteers. Tom?
Steve Osunsami with that new surveillance video. Steve, thank you. We want to turn now to politics and a surprising attack from Hillary Clinton. Clinton saying she thinks the Russians have got their eye on somebody who's currently in the Democratic primary and are grooming her to be the third-party candidate. Clinton mentioning no names, but her team making it clear she was talking about Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. Gabbard firing back on Twitter, calling Clinton the, quote, queen of warmongers and the embodiment